Hi, this is Kirsty from Lloyd's Sewing and welcome to our tutorial on the needle felting attachment for the Brother sewing machines. We are going to show you how you can set up the needle felting attachment and also show you some project ideas using a variety of media such as mixed media paper, wool, wool felt and loose wool roving as well. Now this needle felting attachment is only compatible with the Brother VQ2, V5, V7, XJ1 Stellaire and the XV Dream Machine, and it is only compatible on the sewing side of the machine. Now we will have these at a special price and that will be whilst our stocks last. So in the box with your needle felting attachment, you get a very good sheet of instructions in multiple languages. You get the additional needle plate cover which you need to use, and the felting needles go in there, and it's got a little dust box to catch all the little bits of fluff that come off the wool roving when you're felting. That is something that people have queried with me a lot. They're concerned about the needle felting attachment creating too much fluff within the machine. But what you've got here is a little dust box that comes on and off, and that collects all the bits of fluff in there. So no worry about your machine getting full of woolly fluff. You also get some spare needles. You get the needle felting attachment itself, and that comes in this nice little storage box because these needles are really sharp and delicate. So that comes in its own little box. You get a special finger guard that you have to use, and on the front of there you have also got a hole which you could feed yarn into if you wanted to do needle felted couching. You get a special Allen key screwdriver for changing the needles, and you've got your spare needles there, and then you also get a yarn threader if you want to thread any yarn through the couching hole at the front there. Now let's have a look at how we can use the needle felting attachment with wool roving. Now this is what most people will associate needle felting with, and it's loose wool and it comes in an array of different colours. You get some that are dyed in solid colours like this. You can get variegated versions, and this has been more of a natural dye because you can see it's fluffier and it's not been corded as much as this one has, so it's not as smooth. But you can use wool roving to create landscape images like this. And all I did was build up the different layers with different colours of wool roving. I used the mixed media sheet of paper to start with and just sketched my design onto that first as a guide. And then for the finer details afterwards, I just free motion embroidered over it. Now it's a very creative way of working, and me personally, I normally like everything to be very uniform and precise. I like to follow instructions, so the needle felting is really out of my comfort zone, but it's also a great way of expression with your art and creativity. So it's a nice free-flowing way of thinking when you come to work. And there's also another one that I did here, again on the mixed media style paper, which I drew the design onto first and layered up my felt and then free motion embroidered into it afterwards. So to get started, you would draw your design on here. Now I haven't drawn anything on here at the moment because we're just going to wing it and see what happens. But you take your wool roving, and you don't want to use too much, just use smaller bits, because what you can do is you can layer up. If you put too much on to start with, it's not easy to take it away once all the fibres have been blended together. So it's easier to start with a little and build up the layers. And all we're going to do is spread this out, pop it underneath the foot and drop the foot down. And you might just want to bring the needles down using the hand wheel on the side. Now it will make that kind of crunching noise and you'll panic a little bit when it does that, but all that is because we're going through the paper and the needles that we've got in there. I have also been using these needles for a while now, so you'll probably find that the fresh needles don't make as much of a crunching noise. I've brought the speed right down to start with, and all we're going to do is move that around. I'll increase the speed a little bit because it can actually be easier to have a higher speed. And we're just going to move our fabric around and the wool roving to hold it in place. I'll stop that and you can just see how it's starting to mesh all the fibres together, and that's because the needles are barbed, so as they go up and down it's pushing the fibres in and out of each other to felt them together. Okay? And another little tip for you is you can guide it through to make sure that you get your wool roving in the place that you want it. Because if we just leave it all fuzzy like this, it will felt it wherever it wants to felt. So you can guide it through and just make sure that you know, this is why we have the guide on here. Now if we go in different directions with the needles, you'll get different effects. And if you feel that you want to be moving your fabric quicker, you just need to increase the speed of the needles. All of that wool roving has now been felted onto my mixed media paper. Where it was a little bit thicker here, I've got a denser area, and then where it's thinned out. But you end up with a really nice effect by having those different layers there. Now what I'm going to do is pop another colour in there. And with the wool roving, if you use very fine bits, you can blend all the different colours together. Areas that I've already been working on. Okay, and if there's any bits like this that you've got a little bit too much bulk, you are able to get a pin, and if you just comb through with your pin, you can fluff that area up again, and then you would be able to go over it. So sometimes when you've cut your wool roving and you end up with these blunt edges and you felt them in, you end up with a really blunt edge there. So the best way to get rid of that is just to tease it out, and then you would just start again. You can use pieces of felt and you can cut out shapes and felt them on to other fibres. So here I have a 100% wool felt, and I have got a woven wool tweed fabric, and I'm going to be able to felt these together to create a sheep. I've got all my different elements here. So to start with, I'm going to get the main part of the body where I want it to be. I'll just move his little legs and head there. And I'm going to felt this in place, just roughly in the middle to start with, just so as I've got that held down, because I want to be able to pop his little legs underneath as well, at least the back legs anyway. But you can see there how it just moulds those fibres together for you. So I want to place the legs underneath. Like so. So I think what I'll do is I'll do the other side of the legs underneath, and then I'll do these ones on top here. So we'll start with those two and just peel that back. Okay, so we've got those legs in place now. So the other ones are going to be going on top, so for now I'm going to carry on felting the body. I'm just going to go into each area. And it doesn't take a lot to mould the fibres together. You don't need to stay on one area for, you know, minutes at a time. Just glide over them, and if you feel that you need to go back over them again afterwards, you can do. Okay, now we're ready to attach these other two legs. And if you did want to hold these in place, you could always use your little glue pen. So I like using the Sawline glue pens. I could always just pop a little bit of glue on there just to hold that down before we felt them in place. So we could pop his head into position at the same time. Okay, so once we're happy with all our placements there, we can carry on felting. And there you go. Now, whilst you're working on your projects, you will need to empty out the little dust box that's in the needle, underneath the needle plate cover there. All we do is remove that needle plate, and the little dust box just slides out, and you can see all of the fluff that it's gathered up from us just doing those little samples there. Now, it looks like a lot considering we only did a little bit, but it's a lot better that that has gone into the dust box rather than underneath the machine. And if you just want a little bit of proof, we can remove the needle plate, and you can see inside here, you know, there's no fluff from our needle felting in there. Thank you so much for watching Lloyd's sewing video on the needle felting attachment.